Could you put it right there? There's a thing right there.
There's a thing right there.
Put it on the thing.
What's that? Is your hair blowing around now?
Is it? You tell me. Is it enough? Well, welcome to today's Sunday lesson, the power of freedom thinking. You know, we're celebrating our country's freedom, our country's independence. I saw what we're actually celebrating is our country's divorce from Great Britain. That's what this is about, is a divorce. But I think it's really appropriate right now that we are thinking about what it means to actually be free, just because of everything that's happening right now in our world, in our country. The thing is that we cannot have freedom out here. We cannot have freedom in our communities, in our state, in our country, until we have freedom up here. This is where freedom starts, is within us. And so we're always either in freedom thinking, or we're in a prison of our thinking. And it's surprising how often we actually are in that prison, and maybe you don't know it, maybe you don't. I know I go there a lot, so. So freedom thinking, we're either participating with our life, we're making conscious choices, and this is how we act from free will. We're making a conscious choice, we're present in the moment. We're not reacting out of fear. We're thinking about what it is that's working through us, for us, as us. Okay, so that's being in free will. Prison thinking, we're not making conscious choices. We're making unconscious choices. In a way, it's like being on autopilot. We're not thinking, we're reacting to life. So we're not a participant in our life, we're reacting, which means we're a bystander. And you know, we're all given free will when we come onto this planet, right? When we as a soul come into this body, free will is ours to use, to experience. But when we are in the prison of our thinking, we don't have the experience of free will. It will feel like stuff happens to us that we don't have any control over. Okay, so free will, we participate with life. In a prison of our thinking, we are a bystander, and we're hoping for the best. So today, I thought it would just be kind of fun to examine. Are we in freedom thinking? Are we really in freedom thinking? Are we in a prison of our thinking and just regurgitating old habits of thinking? Are we thinking based on what somebody else told us to think? Okay, so when we think freely, this is what allows us to create bigger in our life. When we are a free thinker, the power of freedom thinking is that it changes what we do next. It changes what we do next. That's kind of a big deal, because that's about how we're choosing and acting and participating in our world. It changes what we do next. Rather than waiting and hoping somebody else will fix things for us, we become a force for good. So let's start with the prison. What's it mean to be in a mental prison? Our mental prison starts with our mental tendencies. That's what Ernest Holmes called them. And I started getting really interested in mental tendencies when he defined karma as a mental tendency. Right? We've all heard like all these things about karma, right? It's like, well, in that lifetime 50 years ago, and I was kind of mean, and so now everybody has to be mean to me in this life because that's my karma. Right? You hear all kinds of stuff about karma. But then Ernest Holmes says it's just a mental tendency. Because a tendency, it's what we tend to do. Right? We just tend to do it over and over again. It becomes our tendency. It's easier to see mental tendencies in other people than it is to see them in ourselves. That's why we might say, well, I have this one friend and they're so judgmental, so I don't share exciting new things with them, right? Because I know they'll just be judgmental toward me. Or, I know this person and they're just a know-it-all. Like they know everything about everything and they're always trying to, make me change my mind. And so that's just their tendency. Somebody who shows up as a victim in their life tends to show up as a victim in their life. So they could be given a year's worth of free ice cream and they'll complain, like, but I'm lactose intolerant, this isn't fair. Like, didn't they know I need soy ice cream? Okay, so we all of us, we have our own tendencies. Now, the thing about having a mental tendency, and this, I am just repeating some information that I saw in the movie What the Bleep, but it's on quantum science. And this is really interesting. And you already, I know you know this. So he's going to either nod his head or be like, no, you didn't quite get that right. Okay, so every time we make a choice, we create a little synapse in our brain. It's like has to do with neurons and pathways. So I just like to call it a pathway. That's easiest for me. Now, if we make the same choice all the time, the same pathway just gets cut deeper and deeper. Okay, so it kind of creates a rut, right? But deeper and deeper. Now, the other thing about this pathway is every time we react and have that same behavior, that little pathway gets a little juice from the brain, right? It's like it gets its own little shot of whatever kind of crack our brain likes, okay? So now the brain, it's kind of imposing an addiction on us because of our choices over and over and over again. But, you know, getting out of a rut is a lot harder to do than we may really think. When I was in high school, I had a motorcycle. Me, right? I did. I had a motorcycle, and it was like almost a full-size motorcycle. But my dad had a motorcycle, and we would go riding on these dirt roads. We lived up in Pine Cove. And these dirt roads, they kind of went behind everything, but it was mostly cars, off-road vehicles, that went on those roads. So there were 2 ruts on these roads. And I actually did not like going out there because my motorcycle and my bike always wanted to go down into the rut. Because between the 2 ruts, it wasn't a nice, flat, even surface. It was a hump. Have you noticed that? And so it was like the rut. It was like everything there on the road was designed to get me in the rut. Designed to get my bike in the rut. Like my dad, he was really good on a motorcycle, so I think he was fine, but I hated it. Well, the same thing happens in our brain when we have a mental tendency that we do over and over and over again. It is hard to get out of the rut. Even when we finally become aware of it, there's the rut, and then there's the hump that we have to try to get up on. Right? We have to try to find a new... That's why change is hard. This is why change is hard. Our brain is feeding these other little neurons this like addictive juice, so it's setting up circumstances for us so we'll keep making that same choice over and over again unconsciously. Okay, so here's one of my mental tendencies. And this has been a mental tendency probably all my life because I never learned a self-regulating behavior to help this. But when I get overwhelmed, when I get sad, when I get bored, in fact, when I get happy, when I have any kind of big emotion, I go straight to the kitchen. Straight to the kitchen. Now, for many years, I didn't think I had an option. It was too hard. Like, I needed to go where the chips were. I needed to go where when I was a little kid, it was Space Food Sticks. Does anybody remember Space Food Sticks? Oh, God, that's so sad for you all. They were the snacks of the astronauts. Right there, chocolatey protein, like probably nothing but corn syrup and coloring, but, oh, that's so sad. You remember them, right? How did I marry you if you don't have the... For your money. Okay, so, but, what? All right, so this has been a go-to, a tendency of mine. There's a neural pathway, a deeply grooved neural pathway. Deanna, you don't feel good. You're not happy. There's something happening. Go to the kitchen. That's where you'll get comfort. That's where you'll feel better. Now, when I started learning about mental tendencies, I go walking into the kitchen one day, and I had like an epiphany. I was like, this is that little part of my brain trying to trick me into doing this. I'm actually not even hungry, right? But my brain is like, but see, all of a sudden now there's a struggle. No, just get the chips anyway, you'll be fine. That'll make you feel better. And so now, even though I've known about this tendency for a few years now, I still, when I get hit with too much stuff that's too much for me, I go right into the kitchen. right into the kitchen. Of course, now, 9 times out of 10, I turn around and just walk out. There's going to be that one time the sourdough bread rustles me, does that now. But see, 5 years ago, I would say 10 times out of 10 times, I wouldn't make it out of the kitchen without something. Because it's a mental tendency. It's how we tend to react to this world, and it's unconscious. Okay, for me, at the time, it felt like a prison. I didn't have any control over it. That's what it feels like. So, our mental tendencies, they're basically an addiction, and our brain rewards those addictions, those tendencies. See, addictions are not just about food, drugs, alcohol, smoking. Addictions are also about drama, right? We buy into the drama. Taking things personally, that's an addiction. Making assumptions, that is an addiction. Okay, complaining and blaming, that's our go-to response. Is it our go-to to just automatically complain something didn't happen the way we wanted it to? If it's a go-to response, if we're not analyzing it, if we're not thinking about it, it's a tendency. If we find ourselves doing it before we even know what we're doing, it's a tendency, right? And there's chemicals working against us. Okay, there's that deep rut working against us. Now, our mental tendencies also lead to behaviors. So, you may find yourself in a prison of thinking if you believe your good only comes from something outside of yourself. If you believe your good is going to come from out there, that something out there needs to change so you can be happy. Something out there needs to be fixed. Do what you want it to do so you can be happy. Okay? That actually is a mental tendency. When we keep looking out there for things to make us happy and make our life really great, that's a mental tendency. If we cannot forgive or let go of something, that is also a mental tendency. If we do it over and over again, if we cannot forgive or let go, that is a sign that we are in the prison of our thinking. Okay? Because not forgiving something actually gives us an excuse to not make changes in our lives. Because if we don't want to forgive somebody, that means they always have power over us. Right? The person we can't forgive, even when they're long gone, they continue to have power over us, and it changes what we do next, right? Or if an event went wrong, right, and it somehow hurt you or damaged your life or somebody you love. Now, maybe it's true that person or that event, they did cause this. Maybe they did cause something terrible to happen in your life, something terrible to happen to you. But then it becomes part of your history. And then eventually you choose how you want to show up in this world. But if you keep making the choice to stay stuck where they hurt or harmed you or harmed somebody that you love, they will always have control over you. And that means you're in the prison of your thinking. Sometimes, well, you're always in a prison, a mental prison, if you speak words of lack. Instead of claiming you're good, you speak words of lack. Now, our words of lack, they're a tendency, and I'll tell you how they show up in my life. I'm so tired. I'm so tired. I'm really overwhelmed today. Right? Oh, this is hard. This is hard. Right? Why is this so easy for so-and-so, and like for me, like I keep spinning my wheels? You know, sometimes, like when Dave and I wake up in the morning, it's like, how'd you sleep? Oh, it was a hard night. But then I'm like, oh wait, actually it was okay. Or I'd be like, oh, I had a really hot, and no, actually it was good. Mental tendency. Viktor Frankl was a World War II survivor. He had every single human right taken away from him. But he still managed to write this in his book, Man's Search for Meaning. Everything can be taken from man, but one thing, the last of the human freedoms to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. That is something no one can take away from us, right? No one. Whatever's overturned, whatever's not overturned, that cannot take away our ability to still show up in our lives as the best version of ourselves, ready to be a change maker in our life and ready to call forth the good, right? That's how we make changes in our lives. But we are stuck in the prison of our thinking. We're not going to be aware of that. We will be at the mercies of our mental tendencies. So when something happens in the world out there, like, oh man, why is all this bad stuff happening? This is hard. This is unfair. How's this going to harm? We're stuck in a mental tendency. And we're actually very powerless when we are blaming stuff outside of ourselves. Okay, but that's the one thing nobody can take away from us, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose our own way. That's always on us. So here's freedom thinking. Here's what it's like to live in freedom thinking. We're choosing and we're acting and we're experiencing free will. We act on our free will. We're consciously choosing the next best thing to do based on the present moment. We consciously choose. We don't choose based on what someone's telling us to choose. We're not feeling how someone's telling us we ought to be feeling. We're choosing how we're going to show up right in that moment. We know we claim our good. We claim our good because the source of our good is within us. Right? It's not somebody's job out there to make us happy. Right? It's not somebody's job out there to make sure that we get to live our life exactly as we want to live it. That's up to us. And when we are acting from our free will, we know this and we take responsibility. When we are in freedom thinking, we experience some really powerful effects from that. We learn the power of not making assumptions and not taking things personally. Because in freedom thinking, we choose our thoughts wisely. Okay, now, I had something, it was kind of funny. It was kind of funny after I thought about it. But Denise Nichols and I were here, I think it was one day last week, maybe the week before, but we were out there doing something. I don't know what we were doing. I don't know what we were doing. But somebody comes in to visit us, and they don't belong to the church at all. They're not a member, they don't attend. But he points his finger right at me. And that feels kind of ugly, right, to have somebody point their finger at you. And he says, "Shame on you for selling this church." And at first, I was going to take it personally. Oh my God, it is all my fault. It's my fault we had a pandemic, right? It's my fault. And I was going to take it personally and make assumptions. What does he know about me that I don't know? Does he know how I'm a failure at everything I'm doing right here? Seriously, it hit me really hard because of my mental tendency. It hit me hard. But luckily, Denise Nichols was there with me, and she was so sweet. She was just kind of right? And I was right. And so I'm just oh well. And I thought about it later, and when we are in freedom thinking, this also teaches us to have compassion, right? And so I just went into compassion. You know what? None of this is about me. I didn't do all of this. None of this is about me. What he's experiencing is not about me. It's from his experience. So I had compassion for him. And I was just okay. There's something really clicked, because I walked away and I wasn't upset. I wasn't mad. I wasn't hurt. I didn't want to go home and head straight to the kitchen, right? I was okay. And this is what happens when we practice freedom thinking. Other people can have their own stuff, and we let them have it. If that's where they are and it's theirs, but we know we can also have compassion for them without taking all the crappy, mean, horrible stuff they're saying personally. Compassion. Okay, so here's some signs that you may be experiencing the power of freedom thinking. You look for the source of your good within you. You look here for the source of your good. This is where you start. All right, to my all spark, my inner G, the divine within me, whatever you want to call it, inner being. What do I do next? What's the next thing? What's the next best thing I can do? Ideas come. We get ideas. We get inspired. That's how we know we are coming from freedom thinking. We embody faith and we act in faith. And we don't need all the guarantees. Right? Guarantees don't get us anything. Okay? Except if you buy a washing machine or something, get your guarantee. But when we're moving and acting in our lives in faith, that needing a guarantee is going to hold us back. So we're in freedom thinking if we act in faith and we embody courage and we know we're going to do that next thing that we didn't think we were capable of. We're ready to surprise ourselves, right? And do something bigger and do greater things. You may just be experiencing freedom thinking if you speak only words of power. I am divinely designed to be taking action. Like I'm divinely designed to receive guidance. When I ask questions, I receive guidance, right? Ask and receive, ask and receive. There is that within me, my divine self, my inner being. It knows what to do. It knows how to do it. And it compels me to act on what it knows. It's always there. I'm designed to be here now. I am a love amplifier. I am a grace generator here on this planet right now during this time because I want to be a force for good. I want to participate in this shift in human consciousness that's happening, that it's really hard and it's shaking up people, like it's scaring people. But I am here now because that means I can do something. It means I can participate in all of that. I am a participant in my own life. You may just be in freedom thinking if you decide to change your thinking to change your life, even though, it'll be hard. It's hard getting out of that rut. It is. And it's hard staying on that bump, right? Basically, we need to go find a whole new road, is what we're doing. We've got to go find a whole new road. And that can be hard. Find that road less traveled. You may just be in freedom thinking if you make choices that honor the divine being that you are. If you make choices based on the truth of who you are, you may just be in freedom thinking. So here is our call to action for this week. Our affirmation: living from my higher nature sets me free. Let's say that together. Living from my higher nature sets me free. So in freedom thinking, we're aligned with our inner authority, our inner G, right? The indwelling spirit. We're participating with life. So freedom thinking, inner authority. Freedom thinking, inner authority. If we're in the prison of our thinking, we're misaligned. We're misaligned. And we're giving power to something outside of us. We're giving authority to something outside of us. Okay, but think about this. We're either aligned with our indwelling spirit or we're misaligned. Okay. Well, what happens when you drive a car and the tires are misaligned? They're out of alignment, right? I did that once when I was a teenager and I didn't know what I was doing. I just kept driving the car. My stepdad's like, why are the sides of the tires all showing wire? I don't know. Was it driving funny? Well, yeah, it's pretty bumpy. Why did you say something? I don't know. But when we are driving in a vehicle and the tires aren't aligned, it's a bumpy ride. And it keeps wanting to swerve, right? Have you ever driven a car and like you let go of the steering wheel and it goes nice and straight? That's being aligned. But when it goes, whoa, right? You need somebody to fix that misalignment for you, right? Okay, so freedom thinking, participant in life. Prison thinking, bystander. Let's wait and see what happens. Let's hope for the best. I hope those things change so I can be happy again. So this is our great work. This is our great work for us to change our thinking so we can change our life. Make choices that honor the divine that we are. So we're calling forth greater good into our lives. You know, the Apostle Paul, he said something, and I bring it up every now and then because it's one of my favorite things he ever said. Because he's talking about relinquishing our inner authority to an external authority. And in his case, maybe he was talking about giving out his authority to conditions or to his addictions. But he said this, I don't know why I do what I do. I do what I don't want to do, and I don't do what I want to do. I don't know why I do this, but that's what I do. Right? He's talking about relinquishing his authority. Whenever, any of us, whenever we do what we don't want to do, and we don't do what we do want to do, we're abdicating our authority to conditions outside of ourselves. Okay, we may be abdicating authority to an addiction, to a belief system that's not working for us, to our mental tendencies. Just keep doing the same thing over and over again. And this is hard. It's hard to change our thinking, to change our life. There are people who pay thousands upon thousands of dollars to get into programs, to get help from therapists, so they can change their lives. Because trying to do it alone, doesn't always work out so good. Right? This is why it's good that we have each other, right? We need support systems. So this is our calling. If we want to live our lives in free will, we face our mental tendencies. We have to come out of the dark. Right? We have to come out of the dark. When we're in a mental tendency, we're not thinking we're in a mental tendency. We're like, oh yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine. We don't think about it at all, in fact. We just don't think about it. But when we come out of the dark, this shifts what has authority over us. Then we become the authority in our own lives. So to turn on that light within us, we remind ourselves, probably, I know, it could be hundreds of times in a day if it's a rough day for you, but we remind ourselves, God is all things. God is all things, everywhere present. God is everything that's ever been and everything that's yet to be. That means me. And that means my ideas. That means ideas, inspiration, that I'm guided, and that when I just pray, it aligns me more deeply with the infinite within me. And this changes what I do next. So my life experience is a reflection of how I'm thinking and acting. I have power over how I think and act. I have power over how I decide I'm going to show up in my life. Whatever is going on in our lives, there is nothing out there that can take away our freedom to choose how we are going to show up in our day. Nothing. We still get to choose how. In faith or fear. That's our choice. In restriction and limitation or in courage. That's our choice. We get to choose to act in faith. We get to choose to receive the grace that's always available to us. Grace, the givingness of spirit, giving us anything that we could possibly need, right? Which includes the courage, includes the motivation, includes the energy, the vital force energy to keep us going, the motivation, the zeal. The ability to know when to ask for help, the ability to know when to be the help. To come from compassion, so that we can maybe give a hand to somebody who's caught in their own mental tendency and they don't recognize it. Maybe we know somebody who's in the dark, but they can't see it. So we see their divine truth for them. We get to be the light in the dark. We get to choose that. How we choose to show up today, we decide to be the light in the dark. And this is how we are creating heaven on earth. That's how we're doing it. That's how we're doing it. So until next time, remember, you are the activity of God walking around on this planet. You are divinely designed to be here, doing this great work, calling forth the good, remembering the light in yourself and in every other person. And everything you do, you are blessed. And so it is.
So it is. Amen.